Be studying chapters 16 and 17 of the book of Joshua. I think, and then we're going to have, I think, 5 more chapters, and we're going to be done with the book of Joshua, which is really exciting that we're, that we're really we're getting through it. Let's upload the text. Here's this and there's that. Okay, and there's gotta go more down. Okay, so can you see the screen?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Oh yeah, it's pretty big now. Am I blocking the view for anyone?
Yeah.
Am I blocking the view?
Yeah.
So you can't see the screen.
We can see
Just the other.
we see everything except the bottom.
Yeah. Oh, look at that. I'm really blocking the whole screen. That's pretty bad. Okay.
We don't want you to cut off your head.
Yeah, Larry, I'm gonna kind of like take over. Oh, yeah, because you know what? We can also do this. Oh, there you go. This is much better. Now everyone could see the screen. Yeah, don't be shy next time. Okay, we're recording. So let's be serious here. Chapter 16, I just reminding you that the chapters before talk about dividing up the land. Okay, the book of Joshua, okay, quick reminder to everyone, is the first book in the Bible after the Torah. Very important book. Why? Because it's a continuation of the Torah. You would think like, right, we only read the 5 books of the Torah in the synagogue. So we would think, okay, that's it. The story ends in the desert, right? The people of Israel, they're in the desert. Do they ever come inside? Okay, we got to continue reading the Bible. And by reading the first book of the Bible after the Torah, which is the book of Joshua, we know that Joshua is assigned to lead the people of Israel from the desert, from 40 years in the desert, after 400 years in slavery. He's assigned to lead them back into the land of Israel. And he successfully does that. However, he's partially successful. Okay, what happens is it takes too much time to divide up the land. And we saw already last time in the chapter that God's like telling him, you're getting old. You're like not doing your job. You're like too slow. And we saw Caleb, his colleague, 85 years old, saying from the tribe of Judah, saying, you know what, I'm going to take up Hebron. I'm going to initiate, I'm going to go and conquer Hebron, and that will be my lot. Okay? And he does that. So we see these private initiatives of people because Joshua is not able to somehow gather all the people, conquer the whole land, and divide it up. Now, we know that there are 12 tribes, and we already learned that 2.5 tribes settled on the east part of the Jordan River. Okay? I used to have a stick. I don't know if someone could stick away. How people take their hour to sleep. Well, coffee second. Yeah, so I have to do with this, okay? But this is the Jordan River, right? Here, let's see, Sea of Galilee, Kinneret, the Jordan River, right? On the east side, which is today modern Jordan, okay? Notice the name, right? Same name. The 2.5 tribes of the tribe of Reuven and Gad and half a tribe of Manasseh settled on the east part, very large part, but they don't go into the land of Israel with everyone else. Why? Because they've conquered it, they've settled it, and they asked Moses already, this is already in the Torah, they asked Moses, can we can we stay here? It's very fruitful, it's very nice, we like it over here. And Moses says, okay, you can stay here as long as you go with all your brothers, conquer the land, and then you can settle back again. Okay, that's really what kind of like happens, although they do leave already their wives and children and flock and all their property, they leave here already as they go and fight with the rest of the Israelites. And now in chapter 15 that we read last week, we saw how the tribe of Judah is settling all over the southern part of Israel, which is Judea. Right? Judea, as we know it, from the time of the Romans and later on, and also the Jewish people. Okay, they're from the tribe of Judah, so they settle in the southern part. So this leaves now. If we have out of 12 tribes, 2.5 settled. Okay, so that means we have 9.5 tribes. Okay, so now we have Judah is settled. So we have 8 tribes, 8.5 tribes that still need to be settled. And today we're going to talk about the tribes of the Josephites, the 2 sons of Joseph, which we read about in the Torah a few weeks ago, Ephraim and Manasseh. They were born in Egypt to Joseph. Okay, Joseph, the lost son, right, who built the Egyptian empire, who saved a pharaoh from starvation. He has 2 children born in Egypt, and now they become tribes as well. There's no tribe called Joseph. There's no tribe Joseph. There are 2 tribes that take his place, which is Ephraim and Manasseh, which was his sons. Very, very big tribes. But Joshua 16 starts with calling them the Josephites. So the portion that fell by lot to the Josephites run from the Jordan at Jericho, from the waters of Jericho east of the wilderness. From Jericho, it ascended through the hill country to Bethel. From Bethel, it ran to Luz and passed on to the territory of the Arkites at Atarot, which is near Jerusalem, descended westward to the territory of the Japhletites, as far as the border of lower Beth Horon and Gezer, and ran on to the sea. Now, when it says the sea, they don't actually mean the sea, okay, as you can see here in the map, okay. This is the tribe of to the tribe of Manasseh. So we said half a tribe of Manasseh is on the east part of the Jordan, and another half of Manasseh, the son of Joseph, okay, is on the west side of the Jordan River, which is today modern Israel. And we see here Ephraim, the second son, has this territory. So Manasseh has really the biggest part. And here's Judah, by the way. Judah has probably the largest part. And when they say it's according to the lot, it means that Joshua sort of like casts a lot, okay, and each tribe picks their own area. Although we'll see it didn't exactly happen that way. It's not really clear in the Bible how exactly that happened.
Rabbi, how did they, as a practical matter, how did they define those areas that they wanted them? It's all new to them, really.
It's all new, so it all really it's geography. It's what they were able to conquer and what not, because the land is still inhabited. The inhabitants of the land, the Canaanites, are still there. So there's always confrontation. Some places they won over, and we read, if you remember in previous chapters, we read all the wars they had with the different kings, and many times they won, and sometimes they weren't able to do that. We'll see today a very clear example that they were not able to conquer, and we'll see what was the response. Okay, so thus the Josephites, that is Manasseh and Ephraim, received their portion. And now it goes into describing the territory of the first one, which is Ephraim. The territory of the Ephraimites by their clans was as follows. Boundary of their portion ran from Atrot Adar on the east to Upper Bet Horon, and the boundary ran onto the sea. It did not run to the sea, as I explained before. It got, it's sort of like parallel to the sea.
It wasn't the Mediterranean.
Yeah. And on the north, the boundary proceeded from Michmetet to the east of Tanat Shiloh, and passed beyond it up to the east of Yanoach. From Yanoach, it descended to Atarot, and Naharat touched on Jericho and ran on to the Jordan. Westward, the boundary proceeded from Tapuach to the Valley Kana and ran on to the sea. This was the portion of the tribe of Ephraim by their clans, together with the towns marked off for the Ephraimites within the territory of the Manassites, all those towns with their villages. Okay? However, they failed to dispossess the Canaanites who dwelt in Gezer. So the Canaanites remained in the midst of Ephraim, as is still the case, but they had to perform forced labor. So this is very interesting. Now they're telling us that within Ephraim, there were parts like Gezer. Okay, you see where the cursor here on the border between Dan and Gezer. Gezer is kind of like the lower part outside of between Jerusalem and Tel Aviv today, or Ashdod. Lies the kibbutz. Today it's a kibbutz, Gezer, but it's an old tel with a huge biblical city that's has been excavated, and if you go there today, it's a fascinating place to see. But that remained Canaanite. They were not able to conquer that. So it's within the territory of the tribe. You have these distinct areas that they were not able to conquer. And then comes chapter 17. And, or wait, actually, I wanted to say something here. Okay. After Judah's territory is defined, Joshua 16:17 describes the boundaries of Joseph's tribes, reflecting the historic prominence of Judah and Joseph in Israel. The fact that these are the two tribes that are described first of getting lands show how prominent they were. Their importance was already evident in the wilderness encampment, where they flanked the tabernacle, symbolizing leadership and latent rivalry. This tension later shaped Israel's history from Saul of Benjamin, okay, because Saul comes from the tribe of Benjamin, and David of Judah, to the division of the kingdom and eventual exiles. Both Judah and Joseph embodied ambition and spiritual growth. While rivals in Genesis, they ultimately cooperated to preserve Israel, illustrating both danger of division and the promise of unity. So this passage is very important because it kind of like tells us the stories that we read in the book of Genesis about a bunch of brothers, okay, Joseph being thrown to the pit and then ending up in Egypt, and Judah, his brother, who comes and confronts him in Egypt, trying to sort of like protect Benjamin. These are not just stories about a bunch of brothers. These are stories that will then shape the nation as it grows later on and becomes multiple and multiply and be big tribes. So it might start from the stories of 12 brothers and how they interacted between each other, which is a very interesting, you know, material for psychologists, for family therapists, etc. You can do a lot of, you know, and analyzing that, but it really comes to tell us the story of what happened afterwards, later on, when these brothers become tribes and when these tribes multiply and become an entire nation. So the divisions between the brothers that we read in the book of Genesis is an indication. It kind of like hints to us on the divisions that will later on be within the kingdom of Israel and the kingdom of Judah. Because if you remember later on in the book of Kings and in the book of the prophet Samuel, we will read about how the tribe of Judah was even fighting against the tribe of the other tribes of the Israelites. They became two distinct kingdoms, okay? And they separated, and there was the kingdom of Judah and the kingdom of Judea and the kingdom of Israel, which was led by the Josephites, okay, by Ephraim, basically. When we say the kingdom of Israel, sometimes the parallel name is also the kingdom of Ephraim. Okay, and we see here in the map that Shiloh, where the temple was, the first temple, that's in the territory of Ephraim. Okay, and if I'm not mistaken, then Samaria, Shomron, is also in the area of Ephraim. Okay.
Down the bottom.
Hmm?
You have it down the bottom.
What?
Like below
Oh no, that's Simeon.
that. Oh, some okay.
Yeah. No, I'm talking about Samaria,
Aren't they?
which was the capital of the kingdom of Israel. So basically, you have here one kingdom, the kingdom of Judah, and you have the kingdom of the rest of the tribes, the other 10 tribes, which today we call them the lost tribes. Okay, right? Like we say, they're like the lost tribes. Maybe they're in India, maybe they're in Africa. We don't know exactly what happened to them. Maybe the Ethiopians are part of the lost tribes, and then that's how they kind of like return back. So these divisions happen here already when the land is being distributed.
Aren't the rivalries and jealousies are foretold in the Bible with Moses, where people were jealous of Moses? So I mean, it's kind of a continuation.
Yeah, that's a continuation, but this is different because this is kind of like the differences and disputes here are sometimes like over land and control, and this is like when they grow. These are like rivalries already between tribes, not between individuals. Okay, so now let's look at Joshua 17. And this is the portion that fell by lot of the tribe of Manasseh, for he was Joseph's firstborn, since Machir, the firstborn of Manasseh, and the father of Gilead, was a valiant warrior. Gilead and Bashan were assigned to him. Okay, so here, these are the areas that were assigned first. Bashan is here, and this entire area of Manasseh is on the east border, on the east side of the Jordan River, and here is Gilead. Gilead is here as well. But today we're going to focus, I think we're going to focus more on the west part. And now assignments were made to the remaining Manassites by their clans. Okay, so Machir, the oldest of the tribe of Manasseh, gets the entire east part. The rest of the sons of Manasseh are now in the land of Israel, and they want their part, because half the tribe already got their lot on the east side. Now the other half wants their lot on the west side. and apparently they were a very, very big tribe. And now assignments were made to remaining Manassites by their clans, the descendants of Aviezer, Chelek, Azriel, Shechem, Hefer, and Shemitah. Those were the male descendants of Menashe, son of Joseph, by their clans. Now, Tzlofchad, son of Hefer, son of Gilead, son of Machir, son of Menashe, had no sons but only daughters. Okay, do you remember that story in the Bible?
Yeah.
One of these descendants only had daughters. The names of his daughters were Machla, Noah, Chogla, Milcah, and Tirzah. And in the Bible, in the book of Numbers, they come to Moses and say, hey, how come all the sons inherit and we daughters don't get anything? Okay, that's not fair. Okay, please close your cell phones. Okay,
Rabbi,
yeah,
why was the tribe divide in two?
yeah, but you have to maybe shut it down. Why?
Territorial.
Yeah, why did they all stick together, Manasseh? Why did they split up?
Because in the book of Numbers already in the Torah, okay, the sons of Machir like the area here before when they're wandering in the desert, and they say we want to stay here.
But the rest of the
Okay.
tribe didn't want to.
No, the rest of them wanted to go into the land of Israel.
Didn't they have to fight? Didn't they have to send fighting men?
Yeah,
So
so
when the men
Moses
went-
made a pact with them. I'll let you stay here as long as you come in and help conquer the land, and then you can go back. And that's kind of like what happened. Okay, so now we're back to the daughters. The daughters are like, hey, Moses made a promise to us in the Torah many, many years ago. Now it's time to keep the promise. Okay, because Moses was approached by the daughters back in the Torah, and he didn't know what to do. So he turned to God and he says, God, do girls also inherit the land? Like what? Tell me what's the story. If someone doesn't have any sons, does his name is vanished, or do his daughters inherit something? So God tells Moses, yes, the daughters of Tzlofchad are speaking the truth, and they need to inherit as well. So there's like a new law from then on that if someone has no male descendants, the female descendants will get the land. But that's only a promise that's been done, because while they're in the desert, they're not in the land of Israel. Now that they're in the land of Israel, it's time to keep the promise. But it's the different leadership, different people, okay? So they appeared before the priest Eleazar, Joshua, son of Nun, and the chieftains, saying, God commanded Moses to grant us a portion among our male kinsmen. So in accordance with God's instructions, they were granted a portion among their father's kinsmen. This is very interesting. Just point blank, they said, don't forget, God commanded Moses, and no one's arguing. Everyone's like just doing, and they get their own part of the land, which is very interesting, right? So
It sounds like this is a really long time frame, though, for someone to recall all that information. So obviously it must have been handed down.
it's been handed, yeah, that's a good
From
point.
generation
It's
to
been handed down.
generation.
It's
Because
kind of like a case study.
Yeah.
Everyone's like been talking about this, and everyone's like waiting. Oh, when we get to the land of Israel, would the male leadership really honor this or not? They're like all waiting. But the way they're approaching this, the daughters, I mean, I don't know if these are the actual daughters, maybe these are the descendants of the daughters, but they actually approach it in a very smart way. There's like a promise was made to us. It wasn't by Moses, it was God's commanding Moses, and now it's time to cash on the promise. And they were granted the portion. But they also, it's interesting that they didn't just go to Joshua and the elders of the tribe, they also went to the priest. They wanted to make it like a religious obligation as well. By bringing in the priest. And so
Didn't they have husbands?
Yeah.
that even if they had husbands, they had husbands from the tribe of Menashe. Okay, but they still, someone has to inherit the land of their father and their forefathers. So they were granted a lot.
And how did they follow on to keep the name of Menashe?
They probably had sons of their own, and they carried the name. Okay.
They just had a portion of the land.
Yeah, portion of
Okay,
it.
so there were other men who had the family name that would go on. Maybe not that portion, but the huge portion.
Yeah, and I don't know if people took the name of there were no last names back then. Back then, everyone just had the private name, and you belonged to a certain tribe. You would be like Noah from the tribe of Menashe, that would be your name, really.
So your tribe was your primary,
Yeah, habitat.
yeah, but it was also your primary loyalty.
Yes, exactly. And okay, yeah, so let's finish the chapter and then I make some comments. So 10 districts fell to Menashe, apart from the lands of Gilead and Bashan, which are across the Jordan. Manasseh's daughters inherited a portion in these together with his sons, while the land of Gilead was assigned to the rest of Manasseh's descendants. The boundary of Menashe ran from Asher to Michmetet, which lies near Shechem. The city of Shechem, Nablus, is a huge city today. Already back then, it's a biblical city. The boundary continued to the right toward the inhabitants of En Tapuach. The region of Tapuach belonged to Menashe, but Tapuach, on the border of Menashe, belonged to the Ephraimites. Then the boundary descended to the Vadi Kana. Those towns to the south of the Vadi belonged to Ephraim as an enclave among the towns of Menashe. The boundary of Menashe lay north of the Vadi and ran onto the sea. What lay to the south belonged to Ephraim, and what lay to the north belonged to Menashe, with the sea as its boundary. This territory was contiguous with Asher on the north and with Issachar on the east. Okay, so if we go back here, okay, we have Asher here, okay, and Issachar here, and Zebulun kind of like in the middle. But the Bible is telling us now something that's only going to happen later on. Right now, the other tribes were not given yet these areas. So it's like how's it called, like a precursor?
Predictions.
Yeah, that's good. Precursor, yeah, that'll work. Yeah. So within Issachar and Asher, Menashe possessed Bet She'an and its dependencies, Ibleam and its dependencies, the inhabitants of Dor and its dependencies, the inhabitants of Endor and its dependencies, the inhabitants of Ta'anach and its dependencies, and the inhabitants of Megiddo and its dependencies. These constituted 3 regions. Okay, now the Manassites could not dispossess the inhabitants of these towns, and the Canaanites stubbornly remained in this region. So this entire region here of Menashe, close to the border, okay, is still inhabited by the Canaanites. They're not able to dispossess them. They're still in their throat, as the expression would say. And it's like kind of like a sore point for them, that here they have all this land, but they can't inhabit it. So when the Israelites became stronger, they imposed tribute on the Canaanites, but they did not dispossess them. So even though they became stronger, they still let them stay next to them. And the Josephites complained to Joshua, saying, "Why have you assigned us our portion, a single allotment in a single district, seeing that we are a numerous people whom God had blessed so greatly?" So they have a little bit of a chutzpah, okay, to come and say, we have all this land, this big land, but we really need a lot more. And not only that, okay, a lot of it is inhabited by the Canaanites. So he gave us this land, which is great, and a big portion of the land of Israel, but there are Canaanites here. So like, what good is this land? Josh is not very happy with this. He tells them, if you are numerous people, Joshua answered them, go up to the forest country and clear an area for yourselves there in the territory of the Perizzites and the Rephaim, seeing that you're cramped in the hill country of Ephraim. Okay, so he's telling him, okay, so this is like the lower parts, go up higher to the higher parts. Okay. Here you can see kind of like these are the mountains. So if you guys are here and this is inhabited, go up here, and there are other nations here. Okay, the Perizzites and all, just take their land, and don't. But this is your portion. You do with it whatever you want. Okay. It's kind of like your problem that there are inhabitants there.
Well, why didn't they stop the conquest?
Well, we'll get to that in a second, okay? So they replied, the hill country is not enough for us, the Josephites replied, and all the Canaanites who live in the valley area have iron chariots, both in Bet Shean and its dependencies, and those in the valley of Jezreel. Okay, so here's a good, you're an army person, okay, so here's a good answer to you, right? We would love to conquer these areas of the Canaanites, but they have iron chariots, which means they have horses. The Israelites didn't have horses, okay? They did not have iron chariots. They came from the desert now. They didn't have all these, things that they saw the Egyptians. You remember the Egyptians chasing them with iron chariots, really scaring them, and then all of them sank in the sea? That miracle was that happened a long time ago. It's not going to happen again. They know how vicious these iron chariots and horses could be against them. So they're like, even if they became stronger as an army, they were like, we don't want to mess around with them. We don't know how a war with them is going to go. And Joshua is like, that's not my problems. Joshua declared to the house of Joseph, to Ephraim and Manasseh, you are indeed a numerous people, possessed of great strength. You shall not have one allotment only. The hill country shall be yours as well. True, it is forest land, but you will clear it and possess it to its farthest limits. And you shall also dispossess the Canaanites, even though they have iron chariots, and even though they are strong. So Joshua is like giving them a pep talk.
Yeah, go fight him.
Go fight him. You're strong. You'll be good. You'll make it. Okay, but he's not saying, okay, I'll gather all the Israelites. We'll conquer this for you, or I'll do my job as a leader, and I'll go to war with you like I did with all the other. Okay, those days are kind of like over. Okay, and that's because, if you remember. Can you sign it?
You want to just turn it off?
I'm trying to turn it
I mean,
off.
just turn the whole phone off, power it off.
Yeah. George good at that.
So we go to
Okay.
buttons, George.
Yeah, I think, is that the new phone? You could probably put it on the side. So. So basically, he's telling them, and as we see, Joshua's getting older. Joshua doesn't have the koach, okay, the energy to do this anymore. So that kind of like answers your question, Jerry. So there's a few elements. First of all, is Joshua's leadership, which is weaker and it's not as strong as it was at the beginning. And we've learned about that already from previous chapters. And the other part is the enemy. The enemy is strong and they kind of have like a status quo. It's clear that there will be a war one day, but right now they're kind of like just ignoring it, letting them keep that status quo on each side.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
as a practical matter, as they started to live there and peoples are, giving birth to sons and daughters, at some point, it's not enough land to divvy up. How did they resolve all of that?
Well, we will see that later on they will go to war. And later on they will conquer more land. But right now they had to do with what they had. Okay? So let's summarize a little bit of what we read today. First of all, Judah was the first tribe in the lottery, and Joseph is the second. This continues the trend of setting up these two tribes as conflicting leaders of the nation. In this very brief chapter, there are two interesting points. The first is that Manasseh is not referred to as half the tribe of Manasseh here, even though the narrative is referred to the half in Canaan. The second is that Ephraim had some cities designated within the territory of Manasseh, and these may be linked. Okay, so that's one thing we read. And then we also read about Reuben and Gad approached Moses to live on the other side of the Jordan. And Moses also allocated some of that land to half the tribe of Manasseh in order to link the outer tribes with those in the land itself. That only works if the tribe of Manasseh is still considered one tribe. This is probably why Manasseh is kept whole here. The idea is that this inside the land Manasseh is part of the larger Manasseh tribe. It should not be considered separate. Okay, so this goes a little bit to what I think was asked before. So first of all, we see the territory on the east side and the west side are linked. There is a continuity. Okay, it's not like one is here and one is here. They are together. And also, we refer to them as one tribe, trying to link the ones that are on the eastern part of the Jordan River with the ones inside the land of Israel. So it's one nation. Not an easy task to do, but through looking at them as one tribe, okay, that's a strategic way of keeping the entire people of Israel together on both banks of the Jordan River, the West Bank and the East Bank.
A chieftain that would represent the tribe of Manasseh.
Yes, we will see that. That's a very important point that we will see later on in at the end of the book of Joshua. There's a very dramatic story happening around that. So Ephraim cities also serve the same function, just like Moses linked the outer tribes to the inner ones with Manasseh in both. The lottery connects Ephraim to his brother with overlapping cities. In this way, the tribe of Joseph, although split into three, is linked together as one, unifying them as a countryway to the tribe of Judah. Okay, so this is another very important point where we have here Manasseh and Manasseh, but also Ephraim is within Manasseh, if you can see that. And there's cities within Manasseh that belong to Ephraim. So because they're brothers, Manasseh and Ephraim are brothers, and then they're son of Joseph, This is linking all three parts, the east part of Menashe, the west part of Menashe, and the tribe of Ephraim. They're all one big territory. And then if you look at their size, it's kind of like the same as Judah. So it's giving them prominent importance. Here's one of these settlements, okay, which is called Bethel. Okay, Bethel is not just a temple nearby. It's actually a very popular name of temples all over, all across the world. There's Temple Bethel, and it's like the house of God, Bethel, the house of God, but it's a biblical city. Okay, 10 miles north of Jerusalem, appears to be situated on the biblical site as the Arabic name Beitin. Okay, even today there's a village called Beitin, and here's a photo of it from 1894, one of the first photographs in the land of Israel. Okay, the ancient city of Beitin. Here we see on the side, on the left side, we see like a grave, like a Muslim grave or a mosque or something. And here are the ruins of the ancient city. And that shows the importance. Today, there is a Jewish settlement there as well. Okay. The extra biblical echoes of the daughters of Tzlofchad, Tirzah, Noah, and Chogla in archaeology. And these are ostraka, like a clay, names on clay that were found in Samaria with the ancient names of these daughters, which is just fascinating, okay? Because toward the end of the book of Numbers, Moses, along with Eleazar, the priest and the tribal princes, was confronted by the 5 orphan daughters of Tzlofchad, who demanded their fair share of the territory that was allocated to their late father. Moses submitted their case before God, who found in their favor, providing for the distribution of inheritance to daughters in the absence of sons. That's from number 27. At the book's very end, which happens to coincide with the end of the 40 years wandering in the wilderness, the incident is reprised with the additional information that they married cousins, thereby keeping their inheritance all in the family, so to speak, which meant the tribe of Menashe. This incident was a defining moment in Torah law as a rare decision and a matter we call women's rights. Suffice it to say, in this context, that the sages did not regard these women as protesters and social activists, describing them instead as wise, lawyerly, and virtuous. Okay, so the Bible doesn't talk in the concept that we talk today as fighting for rights, feminism, etc. But these are kind of like early.
What is that reference down there?
This is the way the Bible, Talmud and Baba Batra calls them, Chachamot, which is wise, Darshaniot, which means like learned, and Tzidkaniot, like virtuous.
So that's where it came.
Yeah.
So
In the current chapter,
the tribe of Menashe and Ephraim, did they get an additional section of land that the other 12 tribes did not have?
no, this is within their part.
Within that tribe.
Yeah. In the current chapter, the case reaches its fruition as the women approach Joshua, along with Eleazar the priest and the tribal princes, and the earlier divine verdict was implemented in practice, and he gave them inheritance among their uncles. Interestingly, while this ends the biblical story of Tzlofchad daughters, it has an extra biblical epilogue. A place named Tirzah is mentioned in the Tanakh, in the Bible, as the first capital of the northern kingdom, which presumably would locate in the proximity of the later capital of Samaria, Shomron. Okay, so if we look back here in the Bible, okay,
It's right under the S.
whoops. Okay, you see here, it says Tirza. Under the name Menashe. Amazing. So we have evidence of the daughters of Slofchad are until today, we have indication in also in these clay that were here as well. Okay. In 1910, the archaeologist Gerhard Reisner found some 60 inscribed post herds.
Potsherds.
Archer.
Oh, potsherds that have
Hey.
come to be known as the Samaria Ostraka, dated to the end of the 8th century BCE, around the time of King Ahab of Israel. They serve as commercial records. 30 of them contain names of nearby clans or districts of the tribe of Menashe, including one place named Hogla, another daughter, and another named Noah, another daughter, evidently after two of Slofchad's daughters. So 28 centuries later, what longer lasting legacy that these women have bequeathed. Okay, so that's really beautiful to see that their names are preserved either in geography or in the potsherds.
Potsherd.
Pot, like from the pottery.
I guess a lot of that ends up being broken stuff.
Yeah. And here is a nice image of Michal ben Chemo of the daughters of Tzlofchad, and a very interesting interpretation of Linda Adams. I don't know the artist, but of the daughters. Okay, one of them is like a singer, one is like a pioneer, right? Like settling the land. Another is like religious woman, but she seems, like assertive. Another is like an army general. And the fifth daughter, I don't know, successful lawyer, something like that. Okay, very interesting. Now, but I do want to compare their story, okay, with the other members of the tribe when the daughters come to Joshua and say, "Give us the land that God has commanded." What does he do? He gives them the land. However, when the other parts of the tribe come to Joshua and say, "Hey, we don't have enough room. We need more space." He says, "That's your problem. Go and conquer it." Okay. So is this like a men versus women difference, or are the circumstances for each of these situations different?
Oh,
Different.
it's God that
Yeah.
stated that the women should have it. And the other is, just men being greedy.
Yeah, okay, so the circumstances here are very important. That's a very good point that you're saying, okay? And this is within your land. First of all, the women deserve this because this is the law that God made, okay, that the women also inherit. And within your territory, this is also your territory. Just go and get it, okay? It's also yours in that sense. But it's interesting to see kind of like a different approach in that sense. Yeah.
Well, also, I doubt the women have military forces at their command that they could do anything.
That's a good point. Right.
Well, what do you?
Well, they're
never
not
play
by
wrong,
themselves. If we're talking about that they may have had husbands and they had a certain amount of land that was due to them as part of the tribe of Manasseh, there were enough men to form at least a militia.
Yeah, it's true, but I think what this really it's a very interesting perspective to look at this from here, because now that we know that land is even more there's a shortage of land. So the fact that the promise to the woman is kept and honored is actually a very important statement in that regard. Because they could have said, okay, once we conquer the whole land, then we'll give it to you or something. They could have postponed it even more down the road. But the fact that they decide to keep the promise at this point, even when there's a shortage of land, is a statement in itself.
You would think the priests would have supported that,
What?
since it was a biblical
Priests,
command
yeah.
from God, the priests would have supported.
That's why
that.
it's so smart that the woman came and spoke in front of the priests and not just the secular leadership in that sense.
Isn't that whole thing a problem for Manasseh? If it's a problem for Manasseh, there's all the Manasseh clans within that could supply men to fight if that was decided by the chieftain.
Yeah, it's true, but you could just only imagine that maybe the women came first to their chieftains, and then they said, "Oh, Menashe chieftains, okay, please keep the promise." And they said, "Well, listen, we'd love to, but we're still at war. There are all these Canaanites in the land. Once we get other parts, then we'll give it to you." So they were probably not happy with that. So they said, "Oh, no, we're gonna go higher. That we're gonna, go up the ranks." And that's when they decide we're not just going to go to Joshua. Please remember, Joshua is from the tribe of Ephraim. Okay, so he could be biased. He could support the other men. So that's why they kind of like bring in also the priest, okay, who has to keep the vows, etc. And he would probably be the fairest in that sense. And that kind of like shows how smart they were in their approach and how they did that.
Well, we'll see, we see later on in Judges, you have Deborah. Women was not necessarily a weak
Oh, yeah,
person. I mean,
right, exactly.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
I have a question. Did the daughters, didn't they appeal in one of the 5 books to Moses, who then asked God?
Yeah, that's
Oh, I
exactly
thought you
what
were-
that's exactly what we were reading.
Oh, I thought you were saying they appealed to Joshua.
Well,
Well,
that's
later on.
later on. Yeah, but in the Bible, you're right. They appeal to God.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
they appealed to Moses, and Moses turned to God, and that's a
And
part
then
I read before.
Right, but then it wasn't being enforced.
Well, because they didn't get to the land of Israel. Now they got to the land of Israel. Now it could be enforced. When it was when the first initial promise was made to them when they were in the desert, so they couldn't enforce it. Now they can actually enforce it.
But the thing is that they weren't enforcing, when they got to the land, it wasn't being enforced, so they had to ask Joshua separately.
Because only now it's being allotted to the tribe of Manasseh. This is the chapter where